Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to a Celtic World, the Tactical Review. My name is Anthony. As always, I'm joined by Paul Massey. As we look at St Mirren 0, Celtic 1, clutching victory from the jaws of a draw in probably one of the dullest matches you'll maybe watch this year, but who knows, maybe there's more in store. Before we get into all things Celtic, I've got a feeling we might have a wee bit of time to touch on other issues affecting the team at the moment, but we'll obviously focus mainly on the match that took place 8 p.m. in Scotland. So it was 4 a.m. where we were on Sunday morning, so that wasn't much fun, but you got to do what you got to do. Paul, we caught up over the weekend to go to see some cricket. I know there'll be a lot of fans that won't necessarily be into the cricket, but being in Australia, a bit of a pastime of ours, and got to see England get slapped within 2 days, which is a new record.
Yeah, it was a fantastic couple of days. Obviously, should have gone to 3, 4. Not many get to 5 these days, but if you've got any interest in cricket whatsoever, then I imagine that the Ashes is on your radar. And if the Ashes is on your radar, the good chances you're probably, like us, pushing for the Aussies rather than our English neighbours. So, cracking couple of days. Viewers might know I'm looking a little bit pinker than usual. Didn't take quite as many sunscreen protection as I should have. We're in the shade. I thought, well, we're in the shade, that'll be fine. Dangerous, the old UV in Australia, bouncing off the middle of the pitch and coming well up into the stadium. So, learn my lesson, maybe in year 16 or whatever I've been in Australia. Cracking weekend. Overindulged, obviously, with all of that going on. And as such, one of the few games this season that I haven't watched live. So I was in no fit state to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. So avoided the phone and the result like the plague. And it might have been one which I'd have been better off watching just the highlights. But I did watch the whole 94 minutes on Sunday morning. I'll get into the detail, but you're right. One of the poorest games I've seen in a long time. I certainly hope it's the poorest game left this year, because there's some big ones coming up and they're coming thick and fast. But not one we'll remember for the majority of it, but in a bit of a Scottish football theme of the last week or so, a goal worthy of winning any match in the end. Made the 93 minutes prior worthwhile, I guess, just to see that goal and to get the result we all wanted.
Yes, our funny enough, English support is like a moral victory as much as some of the Huns do. So interesting, sort of getting some of the responses from them around that. But I mean, obviously with Hearts dropping points as well, it means we are back in we're always in the title hunt, but we're sort of, we're closed that gap again. So what could have been a bad day at the office, drawing, we end up making up 3 points on our title challengers and stay 5 points ahead of the Huns as well, because they got a few dubious decisions to fall their way as well. I think we're having a wee bit of an issue getting live coverage on YouTube, it appears. So I'm going to have a little bit of a fiddle around with the settings at the back, and I'm going to bring up the team sheet so you can have a bit of a chat about that. And I'm going to see if I can fix our IT issues. But if you want to take us through that, there was 3 changes to that lineup.
Yeah, so obviously didn't see the team lines before the game live, etc., and didn't dare to sort of mess around looking at team news prior to watching the game on the off chance that I stumbled across the result. So I was sort of working out the team as watching the full replay. I guess the one really big surprise for me is Simpson Pusey had a very solid debut last time out, and then is extremely conspicuous by his absence, no place in the whole squad. And I don't know if anyone else has heard anything more conclusive, but for a lot of other injury news, I didn't see him mentioned at all anywhere in terms of injuries. So it's a bit of an odd one. So yeah, that was a surprise and a little bit of a disappointment. A lot of the rest of the team sort of picks itself with the amount of injuries and lack of sort of depth we've got at the minute. Obviously, Kenny made his, I think, a debut for Ireland on international duty, so he should have been riding high on confidence. And we persisted with Maeda out on the right. The McGregor, Hatate, Engels midfield three. Again, not a huge argument about the fact that they're picked, but having sort of dabbled with a double pivot and one further forward early on in the interim tenure, it seems like we've reverted to type and sort of pushed the two midfielders further up the pitch again. And yeah, I just don't know why we've persisted with that when we looked a lot more balanced, when we had Engels sitting deeper and next to McGregor and sort of being able to play those forward passes that are clearly an asset. So yeah, not too many huge shocks in terms of the starting lineup, but certainly a couple of little tweaks and oddities that have got me scratching my head a little bit.
Yeah, I can't seem to figure out why we're having an issue, but it would seem that we aren't live because I can't find us on the YouTube channel. So apologies, guys. I'm assuming this will upload at the end once we're finished. So it means we won't be able to take in your comments, which is a shame. But probably if there was a game that we're not live, this is probably the one that the one to avoid. But anyway, but we have to crack on. And Gavin, our fearless leader, is on holiday this week, so no pictures apart from the team lineup. And so we'll be back to our normal sort of format next week. So apologies if you're expecting some stills and the fact that we're live, because we're saying that we're live and we can see we're live, but apparently we're not live. So I'm not a little bit unclear as to what's happened. But apologies, that's all I can say. And we should be back to normal service next week. Paul, I mean, Simpson Pusey not even in the squads. I wouldn't have thought he'd have been on international duty. So, Maesh is getting us live. There we go. So maybe it's just me. We've got one comment. So, hi Maesh. Feel free to chime in with some stats to keep us going to the next hour. That would be greatly appreciated. And thank you for your support as always. But that's a bizarre one, not even in the squads. Again, Bernardo doesn't get a look in. He's on the bench and doesn't come on. I thought Ralston had a bit of a stinker, and Donovan doesn't come on until near the end. And we had Engels playing right back at one point. Bit bizarre. Kenny unfortunately didn't get any service. As you said, he was away with Ireland, and he gets hooked at half time. So it was a very poor first half in general. I mean, I rewatched the highlights today, and we've got one Celtic chance in that whole half, and it was the one where Tanetti blasts it over the bar. So that was on 15 minutes, and that's the only chance that the BBC sort of marked down as a chance. It's a bit of a head scratcher. In terms of where we've been under Martin O'Neill so far, but I kind of feel our kryptonite this season has been the game after a international break. We just seem to come back disjointed, struggle. yeah, my old man can't find us online, so it seems a bit odd that some people can, some people can't. So I don't know what's going on with the algorithm. But yeah, it's just it seems odd, Paul, but odd. But I guess them running for 2 weeks to set up and practice and work out what they're going to do against us, where we have people flying all over the world, and then come back and have to put a performance together. And we seem to be a little like goldfish. We sort of forget what we were doing before we left, and then when we come back, Martin O'Neill says, "Oh, it takes a bit of time to find that fluency," and it took the whole first half. And I have to say, even in the second half, there were flashes, but it wasn't really a vintage Celtic performance, and it was harked a little bit back to the Brendan-Rodgers era of a lot of passing along the back line and playing it safe rather than trying to get the ball forward. And when the ball did go forward, it broke down almost immediately. So Kenny not being able to be effective, but some of the delivery into him was incredibly poor as well. So you've got to caveat the blame on him, and obviously he gets hooked at half time. But it's a tricky one because he wasn't really getting much service. And then obviously we changed it at half time, and Maeda almost scores with McCowan almost right away. I mean, he was offside, but you just sort of felt that maybe that was the go-to option maybe a little bit sooner. I'm rambling. Probably the best chance of the game fell to St Mirren in the 7th minute. So I'd probably get you to talk to this, Paul. So Killian Phillips, he rifles a pass out, a really nice, tasty pass out to Declan John. He backs Ralston up. Again, Ralston doing his usual defending where he backs himself off into the box, which I still to this day do not understand. And then it's a drilled low cross across. And then there was about 2 of them, 3 of them that tune up at the back post. And thankfully one took it off the other and we get away with one. But, out of all the chances, I say that was probably the clear-cut chance of the game.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was St Mirren did well. They're a decent side. Robinson's always got them well drilled. They sort of know their jobs and they stick to their task. And if teams do that and we're not firing, which we clearly weren't, and we don't move the ball fast enough, we're not, don't play with a high enough intensity, which was all issue. They were all issues first half. Then yeah, you're gonna struggle, and they had the more dangerous moments pretty much throughout until very late in the game, and then obviously the clincher. But yeah, it's a great cross by Declan John. It's begging for somebody to put it in, and McMenamin, who was a bit of a pest all night until he eventually went off, he'll be disappointed. He's at full stretch, gets a half decent contact on it. It just sort of slides past the wrong side of the post. And I think it's Richardson coming in at the back post who is again sliding in and sort of he has a bit of a nasty collision with the post, and on he was maybe a bit lucky that he didn't pick up an injury doing that. But I think it's one of those, if McMenamin doesn't get the touch, he's probably there and he's got a tap in. So yeah, a little bit very fortunate, to be honest. As you say, poorly defended, but great cross. Very difficult to defend once that comes in. But Alston's backed off and allowed them to get it in. And then a bit of a let off. And to be honest, we had others. Yeah, Tenecti's chance out of nothing really. He's created it for himself. He comes in off the left, jinks in, makes some space for himself on a sort of diagonal angle with the corner of the 18-yard box, and sort of tries to bend one in the top corner, and he's not far away. But that said, he'd probably be disappointed not to hit the target and at least test the keeper. Like I say, he's shifted it well. He's got good space. And yeah, if there is and I don't want to have too much of a go at Tenecti, because there's a list of players as long as your arm you could have a pop at ahead of him. But the one gripe you might have with him is just the end product isn't quite there often enough and not consistent. But yeah, that was the one bit of, I guess, quality in terms of at least opening up the space. And yeah, decent strike, but he'll probably think he should have hit the target. And I think if he hits the target, he probably scores. So we'd certainly want to see more of that. It was one of the few times he got away from markers. They were doubling up on him as teams seem to have decided they're going to do. It's clear that he's pretty much the main danger man from an attacking point of view, at least in terms of running at defenses. So most people are trying to double up on him, which in an ideal world you would think that would create up some space elsewhere on the pitch, but we're not moving the ball well enough and quickly enough to take advantage of that. And honestly, at some points Saturday night, they were treble and quadruple it up on Tenetti in an attempt to shut down any ability to make space and advantage from his side. So yeah, really poor. Didn't, you know, we didn't play at a decent pace, but even the basics in terms of passing was a mile off. You know, I think we struggled to, if you don't count sideways and backwards, I think we struggled to make 3 passes in an attacking sense in the first half. And for chunks of the second half, that was a problem as well. And the few occasions where we did string 2 or 3 passes together at any kind of decent pace, we looked like that we might get in behind and open them up a little bit. But yeah, it was few and far between. It certainly wasn't happening in the first half.
I think Stephen Robinson's obviously quite an astute sort of manager, and he's not really been getting the results in the league this season. I think St Mirren's only had 2 wins in the league all season, which seems remarkably low given where they've been in the league the last few seasons now. You kind of expect them to be in that top 6. And they always seem to give us a hard game. I mean, you know, the last 3 games, I think we've led for like 4 minutes of the match and walked away with 7 points in the last 3 games, and we've literally been in front for like less than, like, definitely single digits. So it just sort of shows us how you know how much they tend to push us. But Mahesh is making a comment here. You know, Celtic outnumbered the midfield, and that kind of worked for St Mirren for up to 65 minutes, and they got their shots off, their chances. Because there was a long throw. That was the one Freckleton where Schmeichel was on the deck, and then there was another one where Freckleton on 28 minutes he beats 2 men and gets the corner, and then that's one where McMenamin sort of hits the post but coming out. So definitely they had the better of the chances, particularly in the first half. But you probably argue for the whole game really. So I guess, Paul, you know, looking ahead to the cup final, I know Martin O'Neill sort of said that the cup final will take care of itself and it's a different game, but do you feel that St Mirren's tactics here could work in Hampden? You know, obviously Hampden's a much bigger pitch. They don't get to play there as often. Celtic have been there a fair bit, but, you know, they're going to give us a game, aren't they? Because we're not getting any players back. What we've got is what we've got. Shin Yamada on the bench, nowhere to be seen. So yeah, it's just a bit of a worry. We're just kind of, you know, Kamesh has also said here, based on everything, you know, if it's based on XG and all the rest of it, St Mirren should have won 2-1. I mean, I know Martin Neal's got thoughts on XG, Mahesh, and so do I. But yeah, but it's just like I said, you know, they definitely, they probably feel hard done by. And obviously, I hadn't even touched on the offside goal, but we'll get to that in a bit. But
look. If you want to jump ahead to the cup final, I would say I tend to lean more towards O'Neill's point of view as well. So, bigger pitch for sure. I'd be very surprised if we play as badly again. Yes, they'll have a similar game plan, and I'm not saying it'll be straightforward. But I think it's now looking pretty clear that it will be very likely that we'll have a new manager in play by then. And that's likely, from based on what we're seeing and hearing, the cup final would be his 4th game in charge. So as much as the games will be coming thick and fast, and it'll be 2 weeks into his tenure, and we're talking about Wilfred Nancy for anyone who's been asleep for the last month, it looks like the latest reports are coming out are saying that he will be a contracted Celtic manager by the 1st of December. In classic Celtic style, it looks like the compensation drops from the 1st of December onwards. And it looks like he's trying to bring 3 or 4 of his backroom staff, and that contractual stuff is potentially what's holding up the deal currently. So all things being equal, you'd expect that to happen. That means he's in for, I think, Dundee, Hearts, Roma, and then the cup final. He won't get a huge amount of time on the training pitch, but 3 games prior, and yeah, a couple of weeks to get his ideas across. You would imagine we will see at the very least a new formation or a tweaked formation based on how he has tended to play. And I guess every player's got a fresh slate. So even though it's the same squad, I think you might see slightly. Well, you almost certainly see a different formation, and I think you will probably potentially see some rotation, just natural rotation through who the new manager fancies versus who's currently got a jersey. So, and in a couple of weeks, guys like Iheanacho, Sirachi could be back and available. Those injuries aren't as serious as the real long termers. So the squad might have a little bit more variation. We will probably have a new formation, and there's likely to be some personnel tweaks in starting lineups as well. So I think you'll see quite a different performance, and I'd like to think, yeah, as I say, we saw an immediate reaction when O'Neill and Maloney came in, and I think you probably see that again. That especially, and that's only an interim manager, permanent appointment. Everybody's got to be up and at it because January window will be around pretty quickly, and some decisions will be getting made in that month prior to the window opening. So every player there is playing for the Celtic future. So you would like to think that there'll be a competitiveness even in a thinnish squad, and that, yeah, as I say, I don't expect us to play as badly again. So I think I agree with O'Neill. I think the cup final will take care of itself.
Definitely, there's room within the squad to try and find a formation that works with the players that are available. I still kind of feel that midfield 3 still isn't clicking. Again, Engels had a pretty poor game.
He's been playing out of position. Like that game we played, where he played down, further back next to McGregor. He's able to play forward passes from deeper. It's a little tweak, but I think it makes a massive amount of difference. And I don't know why we've reverted back to the same old formation that didn't work under Brendan-Rodgers latterly. So, but you're right. He didn't have I thought Engels had a decent game defensively. Actually, I think his working back was good. He got his body in. He was strong. He broke up attacks. Obviously, that's not really what you expect from him, but I think that's a part of his game that, again, I think that benefits him playing deeper because I feel like he gets a bit lost higher up the pitch. He's, I think he's better with the game in front of him. He's got good vision. He's a great passer of the ball. And I think higher up the pitch, he's not super quick. He's a good athlete. He's a strong runner, but he's not got, massive amount of pace. He's a passer more than somebody with real jinking dribbling skills. So I don't think he's really utilizing his best position in that sort of 8 role. Hatate, another one. Like, I reckon I had a quick look at the clock. I think it was about half an hour before he really got his foot on the ball and did anything meaningful in terms.
But that's not the first time that's happened this season either. Like he's had a poor season, and he's one of the players that's managed to stay fit. Touch wood. So it's like, you've got to expect these sorts of players to stand up because we're literally dropping like flies. Like, it's a minor miracle we've come back from the international break and we've not lost anybody else. Actually, James Forrest ended up on the injury list between the last game and this game. So obviously, I don't know whether it was training or where he's pulled up sore from the last game before the international break. But again, we're just not seeming to get anybody back. We're just treading water, or we're losing more players. So it's just absolutely backs to the wall stuff at the moment. And we're coming into probably the thickest set of fixtures you're going to get all season. And on top of that, all right, the transfer window's open, presumably opens on the 1st of January. You're not going to sign players on the 1st of January. That's just not going to happen. So you're talking another month before those players even get in the door. And then in typical Celtic fashion, usually they're not fit enough, or they're not up to Celtic speed, or whatever the terminology is. But yeah, you could be looking at February, March before some of these players, if we sign anybody, actually makes an impact. You're hoping they make an impact straight away. But the reality is you're probably going to be signing players on loan who aren't getting a look in with their parent club. So what sort of state are they going to be in? Yeah, they might contribute, but how quickly? So you really got to hope that, all right, if Nancy does come in, back him, great, yep, but he's going to have to, let's hit the ground running, and then there's whatever the hell this is going to have to be, because it could get away from him very, very quickly. And Rangers have settled. I'm not saying they're the finished article, no, far from it, but they're starting to string some results together in the league. All right, Hearts have hit a bit of a bubble, and they've dropped some points, but we have to keep the pressure on. We have to keep winning. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting couple of months. And like you say, with a new manager coming in, new backroom team, and then Mesh has brought this point up here, talking about Nancy, just sort of saying that Columbus Crew very similar to Celtic. Jeopardy of losing the lead, because Celtic will be easier to defend against and easier to transition against with his tactics. But I guess it comes back to, I think Nancy likes to try and basically control the tempo of the game, and then all of a sudden beat the press and then sort of getting behind. And I guess if you've got the players capable of doing that against players that aren't capable of defending against that, that's probably that's the key, or that's the ticket. And in the MLS, you've got a salary cap of sorts, so you've probably got a whole stable of players that are very similar to one another in quality. So it takes your marquee signings or whatever to really lift your team, because the rest of the caliber of the players are very much of a, well, much of a muchness, but they're all getting paid the same. So it'd be like probably St. Mirren and all the teams around St. Mirren all play against each other, and it's like you take Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, and Aberdeen probably out of it. I mean, Aberdeen, obviously not growing terribly well, but they're spending some money. That's what it would be like. So it's just interesting to sort of see how his tactics transition with presumably better quality players. But we'll wait and see, because it's all speculation at the moment. It's a little bit of music, but maybe the time we're on next week, it'll be a bit clearer what's going on. But the communication from the Celtic board, not exactly great at the moment. Paul, back to the game. So we had that chance where Maida was offside right on the start of replay. And then on 68 minutes, a long ball free kick, and that leads to the Stales own goal, which the linesman flags for offside. I thought it was the striker McMenamin. I thought he was the one who put it in the back of the net. I think the commentator thought that as well. And then in replay, it was Liam Stales. But obviously, some sort of conjecture online that it shouldn't have been offside. But McMenamin clearly putting pressure on Stales, coming across, definitely active in the field of play, which is I think that's the terminology they like to use, Paul. But yeah, definitely a no-brainer for me that decision stood. But Neil McCann getting a little bit sort of cute with his comments on Sports Scene, and a few Rangers supporters a bit forgetful of the Maeda chance that got canned in the League Cup semi-final, which was very similar. So they got one there, but apparently we've got the referees in our pockets apparently. But I don't. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, the first thing is I thought it was an own goal on first viewing. I obviously you kind of a quick one. I was like, just the body shape of where the striker was. I thought, I'm not sure how he can hook it in to the net in that fashion from where he is ahead of the play. So yeah, first view, and I thought it was potentially an own goal. Equally, I thought McMenamin was 100% offside. Replay showed he was a big chunk over. And as Mahesh says here, he's absolutely active. Like, Scales doesn't need to even try and play the ball if McMenamin isn't in an offside position attacking the space where the ball is going to end up. So by the nature of where McMenamin is and looking to pick up the ball coming through, Scales has got to act. And then he turns it his own net. Great finish, actually. He's obviously spent a lot of time attacking or helping attacks for Ireland in the international break, and fair play to him.
He's playing left wing back.
He's left wing back, and he's been getting knock-ons and assists. 2 assists in 2 games he got, with knock-ons and knockdowns. So yeah, he's had a great international break. But yeah, if it was at the other end, you'd be pretty pleased with that finish. Thankfully, common sense prevailed. I'm not sure how you were watching it. I don't think you're on Celtic TV, but even in the replay, Celtic TV froze, or the pictures that were wherever they were coming from froze right as they put the still up of the offside position, and the clock ticked. I thought maybe my sort of stream had paused itself by accident, so I double checked it. No, the clock's still ticking away. Ticking away for another minute and a half, and then eventually came back, and the game was back on. It was an inopportune moment for the screen to go still.
I was on Sky Sports with Faddy and Ian Crocker, so I just had Ian Crocker constantly apologising for the swearing of that supporter that always stands by the boom mic on the touchline. Like, every time there's a St Mirren game at the Spezza Stadium, you just hear this guy go, like, it's clear as a bell. Like, and he's like, you must have apologized about 10 times. And Faddy's like, he says, "Oh, you're in Paisley. Like, what do you expect? Like, it's just what it is." But yeah, it was you never a dull moment. But yeah, the right decision. And anyone who would infer otherwise, I think, has been a little bit mischievous and maybe has a wee agenda. 77 minutes, Liam Scales puts driving cross in. And Maeda sort of gets a glancing header, doesn't get it on target, but then Luke McCowan sort of coming at the back post, just can't quite get there. Maybe we were flat-footed, but probably not expected it. Maeda maybe gets it on target. It forces the keeper to save it, and then palms it out to McCowan. Just unfortunate, but a good ball in from Scales anyway, and just showed a little bit of endeavour, because up until that point, there was very little. Like, you're sort of sitting there going, like, when are we going to, like, spark to life? Are we going to spark to life? Like, you just didn't really feel like it was going to happen.
Well, yeah, it's a great cross by Scales. In fact, I'd go as far as to say it's the best cross of the night from Celtic, which, when you're left set...
I would say Yang's cross for the goal, just before the goal, was put in a dangerous area. It wasn't really picking anybody out. There was no one there, but...
He's not picking anyone out. He knocks it in the area and it causes a bit of mayhem. And yeah, but even that, just because that's where a goal eventually stemmed from, it's not as good a cross. That cross is, by his skills, is not dissimilar to the one Srirachi swung in, I think, against Kilmarnock very early on in the season. And Maeda scored pretty much the same
diving header
in the bottom corner. And yeah, he gets a good contact on it, but it's just the wrong side of the post. So yeah, that in and of itself is pretty damning. That your left centre back, when auxiliary shifted to left fullback or left wing back, because I thought when Dane Murray came on, we were actually going to play 3 at the back, but it quickly became apparent we were playing 2 at the back, and because Engels wasn't playing right back, he was playing right wing back at best. And Scales similarly, they were very high up the pitch, and so yeah, it's a bit of a damning indictment on the earlier fullbacks and the wingers, and really anyone that got themselves into, and I include Engels in this. His set pieces were not great, and usually they're on point. I think we didn't really win that many corners. I think we only got 2 or 3 all night. I don't know. You'll have the stats in front of you probably. I could drag them up here.
You carry on. I'll look them up. Yeah.
Four we got in the
4.
end, but I think they were all second half. So
They were,
that's how poor things were. But yeah, Scales was pretty good. He did have one odd pass that put us in trouble. That just sort of and he again, look, I'm not going to pick on Scales. He's been pretty solid. But there was I don't know if the pitch was playing some part in it or the players were just very rusty, but Hatate, Engels, Scales, Ralston, even Tierney and McGregor all left passes short multiple times throughout the match. That's not true. Scales only had one, but most of the rest of them left passes short at multiple times. And that was one of the reasons why we were so just disjointed and so poor, especially first half, is whenever we got the ball, somebody would play a poor pass that would just be behind somebody or not quite at the right weight or beyond them. Or in Kenny's case, not quite able to, knock it off neatly or hold it in and then pass it off. Just bad decision making as well around the edge of the box. That even second half times when there was an opportunity, I think, for Maeda just to knock it back into Hatate's path and be the wall for a nice 1-2 that would have potentially opened Hatate up to have a shot from range. And he tried to control it and turn his man, and he made a mess of that on the edge of the box. So I just think, yeah, poor execution and bad decision making was a bit of a theme all night. And yeah, I think if you're being about as positive and generous as you could be about that game, you would say, well, we're often poor coming back from an international break, and hopefully we put it down to that. And that's been as kind and generous as you could probably be. If you were being more cynical, which I choose not to be tonight, because I've had a generally upbeat weekend, you could say that, yeah, it was just a generally pretty poor performance and concerning for the future. But I think it's one of these where you might just have to say,
take the win.
Game, terrible performance. We somehow took the 3 points from somewhere.
I
I guess I was going to say,
refreshing. Yeah.
If we go on and win win the title as we all hope we do, this could be a game much like Ross County with Ralston's late header, where you go, that's a game where the season sort of maybe didn't turn completely or not, but it's a season defining win. Because yeah, we're staring down the barrel of dropping 2 points, and you don't know, that might have just given Hearts a bit more a bit more galvanized. Apparently they were the better side against Aberdeen and a bit unlucky to come away with nothing. So, this weekend, even this early in the season, this weekend could be kind of pivotal.
Yeah, well, we'll see. But in the grand scheme of things, we're 3 points closer to the top of the league, so we're now 4 points off with a game in hand. So that gap is closing. So the pressure's starting to build. But I've got a very strong feeling all three teams will be dropping points in the next 4 to 6 weeks. I just can't see how all teams will continue to win. The pitches start getting muddy, starts getting colder. More fatigue, more injuries, which I don't think we can really sustain anymore. But it's all the things that you worry about as a supporter and a fan. We said at the start of the show, guys. Apologies if you're watching. Unfortunately, we for some reason the show is not going out live, except for Maesh, who is somehow receiving it. I really don't understand what's happening. So hopefully this will all go uploaded later and you can watch back, and we apologize, and it should be normal viewing next week. And yeah, like I say, please like the episodes, even though we're not live tonight. It does help other like-minded Celts find us online. Paul, save the best for last. Quite the worldy, as I like to say, basically, the goal, I think Martin Neal said the goal is a goal that the game didn't deserve. I think he said something at one of his press conferences or post-match, and it's probably fair. Like, the quality in this goal just supersedes everything probably by about a factor of 50, particularly Celtic anyway. Cal Mack There's a bit of interplay beforehand, so ball just played out wide. Yang, I said, cross comes in, but no takers, and St Mirren don't really clear it all that well. Goes to McCowan. McCowan plays it straight inside to McGregor. McGregor finally just gets that wee out of space. 2 touches, looks up, and drags it to Celtic left-hand side, and gave him really no chance. And it was just, as soon as he hit it, I went, this is going in. And it's just like, when you saw it and you watch replays, and I've obviously watched it back a few times today, like you really can visualize the Titanic music playing like with this sort of thing, because it's just like, it is literally the last kick of the game. Like, you knew as soon as it went back to the center, it was game over. Like there was no more time to be had. Like it was literally on 5 minutes. But a captain steps up, and it was a little bit like, was it Kilmarnock when we were having a bit of a rough trot in the season, and Scott Brown scored that goal and ran out of the crowd, and like all the fans surrounded him, and it just had all the echoes of that. And that was, I'm pretty sure Bruni was wearing like one of the fluorescent tops that night when he scored, and we were obviously wearing the black with the fluorescent green, obviously not last night or the night before, whenever it was. So I just felt there was a few wee, it's a few wee, I don't know I don't think the word. I've had a long day, but you know what I mean. What were you thinking, Paul? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a fantastic goal. Well, it's a fantastic strike. It's an amazing goal. Pressure. Absolute clutch kind of pressure point. And the skipper steps up. And as I say, I didn't think he had a very good game. He wasn't alone in that. But I think the mark of quality is you can pull out one of these moments even when you're not playing well, and that goes for both the team and the individual. I think it was that. Well, I don't think it was actually Colby Donovan that had the ball and shifted it inside. And yeah, I just want to make a little point on that, because it would have been very easy for him to take a touch when that arrives at him and then play the pass. But he plays it first time. He sort of kind of adjusts his feet a bit and then sort of almost stabs it with the inside of his foot and just keeps it kind of, it's like a stun pass. He just sort of pushes it into McGregor's path. But I think by him reacting in that way and not taking a touch, he gives McGregor more time. And I think that is like, I don't think you can underplay the benefit of that little bit of extra, that those milliseconds that he gets, because there's not a second touch on that. There's not 2 touches. It just comes straight to him. He gets 1 touch, and the first touch, and he spoke about this in his post-match. His first touch is really good. It gets it out of his feet. And then the second touch is even better. I think the first touch, he almost knocks it a little bit too far away from himself, but better that than having it too close to him. He gets out of his feet. And then the second touch, he just knocks it perfectly into his own stride. And you're right. As soon as he leaves the boot, and he said it himself, you absolutely know that will, you're not saving it. It's just as clean a hit as he's probably ever had. And McGregor strikes a really nice ball, but that's as clean as you can't hit it any cleaner than that. He hits it perfectly. The power's there, the pace is there, the direction's there. And Celtic is a big keeper. Like, he's a tall guy with a long reach, and he, even then, it's out. It's out of his reach. He doesn't even get a tip on it. So yeah, one of those you can't quite believe it's happened in a game as bad as that. That's a game that just looked like it was going to peter out. There was zero quality in the game, certainly from us. The little pockets of for St Mirren, and there was a nice interaction between. I don't know if you saw it post match. A nice interaction between Gogic and Callum McGregor. Gogic sort of got him in a kind of hug and a little kind of shook him and just almost laughed, because it was just one of those. He was like, as if to say, "You bastard! Like, you didn't deserve that." But sometimes you just got to stand up and say, there's nothing you can do about that. We massively needed it. And yeah, the skipper stood up when we really needed something from nothing. and got us out of jail. Because, you look at Stephen Robinson after the game, or just it goes in, and he's absolutely sickened, and the St Mirren players just looked shocked, and they, you often hear other fans and commentary teams and pundits saying, "Oh, such and such didn't deserve to lose that game," and you look and go, "Well, you created nothing, you played dreadful football, and you tried to squeeze a draw out of it." But in this case, I would say St Mirren really didn't deserve to come away with nothing. They created the better chances in the game. They were very well set up. We were poor, of course we were, but their job is to restrict, and they did a very good job of that. And they created the better chances throughout the match. So they will go. I think they got beaten like 2 or 3-0 to Hibs recently as well. And I think by all accounts, they were arguably the better side that night as well. So I think their league position sort of belies their current form. And I think if you're playing well, eventually the results will turn. And I've got no doubt with Robinson and that squad of players that he will start to move them up the table. So yeah, as difficult as it gets with where we are at the minute in terms of where we were going to, who we were up against, and post an international break. So to come away with a performance as shockingly bad as that and take all 3 points with an absolute worldie, then yeah, you've got to be pleased.
Absolutely. Yes, ultimately, whether they out-tacticked you at the end of the day, it's all about scoring goals, and we scored and they didn't. Paul, may as well jump straight to man of the match. Let's just get this game put to bed. It's been a big weekend. And I said, busy day at work and a few IT issues tonight, which has been a bit frustrating, but we do what we can. I'll say Cal McGregor, because obviously, to score that goal, that was the better quality that the rest of the game solely lacked. Like you say, definitely not a great performance from him overall, but at least we 95 minutes on on the watch. He was still willing to drive forward and try and make something happen. So I think you'd got to give your captain marks for that, and then obviously he actually gets the goal that wins the game. So, and as James McFadden said, a big week for Scottish players scoring big goals, because there was some crackers, quality of goals that could win any game, and there was 3 of them in one game. But that's just typical Scotland. Any disagreement on Calmac, or I don't think there will be?
No, I think as the clock was sort of ticking into past the 90, I'm sitting going, how am I going to pick a man of the match on Monday night? I'm going, well, Casper's had a couple of saves. Trusty's been solid. You're really scraping the barrel, right? Really, like that was where I was at with those two. Maybe Kieran Tierney obviously didn't finish the match. But that tells you everything about the quality and who was the better side when I'm looking at our centre back and our goalkeeper as a potential man of the match. But yeah, no, it's got to be Callum McGregor. Just the one bit of quality that we produced all night. An absolute clutch moment and a brilliant strike. So yeah, despite the fact he had a reasonably poor night overall, he produced the moment that really mattered. So yeah, it's not a difficult one to give him man of the match.
We've obviously got 5-10 minutes up our cuff, Paul. So I guess might give you an opportunity just to give us your thoughts about the Celtic aborted AGM, the Nepo baby, Desmond's son saying some choice words, which I think got the reaction that they were looking for. They wanted it wrapped up early, avoid scrutiny. I'm saying we gave them what they wanted, but obviously in face of what was said, it's completely understandable the response that the people on the board in the boardroom sort of gave. But ultimately, they stir away with no accountability, and it just rumbles on. But there's reading the room, and then there's whatever that is. And again, question: how does a non-majority shareholder have a proxy at an AGM giving a statement in a Celtic board tie? And I still understand how that's even like,
no.
what's your corporate governance structure there? I can't quite figure it out. I'll give you the final word on it, Paul, and then we'll just move into some recommendations when you're ready.
Yeah, no, be careful how aggressive and offensive my language will be, is because I could not believe in a season where we've had some ludicrous statements from board and principal shareholder, to play a video beforehand and say we need to bring unity to the club, and then minutes later have the principal shareholder's kid read out a statement which is apparently from Dermot as opposed to Ross, calling fans bullies, and it was an all-out attack on the fan base. And it didn't name the Green Brigade or the Celtic Trust. Maybe it did actually in passing name the Celtic Trust and the Green Brigade. But it was, I don't care what your view is on the Green Brigade. An attack like that at the AGM in front of the shareholders who are all fans is attack on the entire fan base as far as I'm concerned. And it's an absolute disgrace to sit there and have as aggressive a statement as that when you've apparently called for unity. That this board have been gaslighting the fan base. Now they're all out attacking the fan base. We didn't see this level of vociferousness in condemning the police when fans were kettled at the end of last season. We haven't seen this level of aggression in a statement when our staff and players have been hit by missiles at Ibrox, yet we're happy to come out and be that aggressive on our own fan base. The fans, as Jockstein said, are everything. Football without fans is nothing, is the quote. And the fan base will be here long after billionaire nepo babies and their dads are here and gone. So yeah, no, absolutely furious. And some of the online reaction from some of our so-called fans saying, "Oh, the people disrupted the meeting, and let the board off the hook, and they never got a chance to hold them to account." This board are never going to be held to account. As you said, they had no intention. Very quickly, they knew there was going to be a strong turnout, and they knew there was going to be some dissent. That because that's the nature of where we're at, right? That's exactly where we're at. The board knew fine that. Their job is to hold an annual general meeting and meet that dissent head on, because that's the shareholders are owners of the club. So instead of throwing your toys out the pram and having an adjournment for 30 minutes when barely anything's happened, you got to stand up and control the meeting and run the meeting properly. That's Peter Law's major job as a chairman, is to chair the meeting. He couldn't chair the meeting. He didn't want to chair the meeting. Yeah, he didn't want to chair the meeting. So he took a half-hour adjournment. When they came back, they then had the cheek to say, "Oh, the meeting won't be extended, so you've lost half an hour," which is exactly what they wanted. Jeanette Finlay asked them to kindly stop pissing about with the videos and get on with the meeting so that they would get time for questions. They ignored her and told her to sit down. So they played this video for 15, 20 minutes to kill time. They took a 30-minute adjournment for next to nothing because there was some booze and a couple of chants and some red cards waved. They're not only are they nepo babies, they're all babies. Like they can't handle dissent. They can't handle legitimate questions. And any Celtic fan that's buying this nonsense that the people in the room causing dissent meant that they didn't get to the questions and be accountable. This is a board that sat down with the Celtic Fan Collective for over 2 hours just a few weeks ago and showed zero accountability. In fact, basically said, "There's nothing to see here. We think we're doing a grand job. Bugger off." Right? So if in a 2-hour meeting with 20 fan representatives that cover a massive chunk of the fan base, you get zip out of Nicholson and Mackay in that meeting, I don't know what you're expecting at an AGM where they've had all the time in the world to prep what they've done. This was absolutely orchestrated by them to kill as much time as possible, and that statement from Desmond was absolutely designed to cause a reaction, and then they could pull the pin. So I will not have a single word said against the shareholders in that room who were absolutely within their rights to show their dissent, and a board who refused to take any accountability and take every opportunity to just revert to silence and sweep things under the carpet. So, yeah, a disgraceful way to conduct themselves. Absolutely on point for this lot. They're long since past their best. The corporate governance is negligible. We've got the same directors in position for 20 years plus. The world has moved on, and they gaslight fans saying, "Oh, you don't understand how things have changed in the landscape, and it's much more difficult to run things than it is." Well, it's partly more difficult to run things because you're still trying to run it like you did 20 years ago. Fuck off. I knew I wouldn't get through it without swearing. Fuck off and let somebody come and do the job that's capable in 2025, 2026, because we're absolutely going to go nowhere under this board. So, yeah, that's my view on the AGM. An absolute shambles and a disgrace, but pretty much as you would expect from this lot of charlatans.
Thank you, Paul, because I knew you wanted to get that off your chest, and well said. And I totally agree with everything you just said there, because it's you treat. I just go back to the COVID season or around COVID time, and what was the football like then? It was terrible. It was dreadful. Like, just there was no atmosphere, and that's because there was no fans. And it's like, you don't have to go back that far to remember that. And it's just like, you've got to be careful. You take people for granted, and it's what sows the seeds of dissent. And it all comes apart. But you just unfortunately don't see it changing anytime soon. That's the problem. So, whatever our next round of protests are, we're going to have to double down, it would appear, because they're clearly not getting the message. They just think they can get away with this.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, you're right. This is going to go on and on, because on the one hand, they show no interest in, the only little, like, they admitted some mistakes, but they show no accountability of how they just say, "Oh, we'll fix those." We want to see an actual plan. Now, I don't need to see a full blueprint that runs to 150 pages, but we need to hear something that shows that you actually have got some sort of plan. It's all well and good admitting mistakes, and that's a start, because you usually don't even get that from them. But I think it's so blatantly obvious there's been mistakes that they kind of had to accept some sort of responsibility. But other than saying mistakes, we need to know how you're actually going to go about fixing them. So, we're stuck with this law. I think certainly it doesn't look like Desmond has got any interest in going anywhere. And as long as that's the case, I feel like you're shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, which is what I've said before. So, I think it was always going to be a long stint. But I think we're definitely going to have to dig in for longer if we're going to get any kind of accountability and change.
Well, news across across Glasgow, Rangers have sacked Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thwell, their sporting director. So there you go. Breaking news. As we're just finishing our podcast, that's happened in the last hour, apparently. Sky Sports are reporting that, so we're assuming that's legitimate. Paul, recommendation for us to see us out, because we're at an hour.
Yeah, absolutely. So, album of the week. It's very rare that I would recommend a best of album as album of the week. However, a band I absolutely adore, Doves, have released a best of called So Here We Are, and 6 studio albums across 25 years. So they're not the most prolific. I'm not sure if this best of is just an opportune moment to put one out, or it's part of, it may be part of like a contract they've got with their publisher. I hope that's all it is. I hope it's not them drawing a line under things. I know Jimmy Goodwin's been really struggling with his mental health, and didn't tour on the last album. So I do hope that this is just an opportune moment to bring a collection of the best tracks from 6 albums across a quarter of a century, and pull it all together in a nice compilation rather than it being the end of the line for those guys. But yeah, if you're not across Doves, this is a brilliant way for you to get into them as a band, and every track on there is an absolute belter.
Did you mute yourself there, Paul? You having a... All good. You back?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened, but
okay, that's okay. You were just about finished anyway, so it's okay. So it's all good. I was just trying to recommend a couple of things I saw on social media. So Shipmates, the 2 Aussie boys that just like to pretend to commentate big sporting moments. So they've done a bit of a collaboration with Scotland with their drought-breaking goals that got them into the World Cup. So great scenes there. So they're sort of impersonating Liam McLeod, which is quite funny. So definitely check that out on social media. And there's another one from Comedy James. He's a comedian. He does a wee bit of a piss take of Peter Law and the Celtic boards, which I thought was quite funny. Because sometimes if you don't laugh, you'll cry. Paul, thank you very much for joining me. Again, I apologize to everybody who's watching this. Maesh was the only one who managed to get on live with us. I can't understand it. I can't explain it, but I appreciate Maesh's comments all through the night. So thank you for that. We will be back live and proper next week. I didn't even look ahead, Paul. Do we know who we're playing on the weekends? Any thoughts?
Hibs, I think.
Hibs
at Easter Road.
That's a hard game.
Yeah,
that's a hard game.
It is a bit of a tough match, but the good news for you and I is it'll be an 8 p.m. kickoff local time on Sunday evening, so we'll be able to watch the match and get ourselves to bed at a reasonable hour. And it's just a few hours. It's just 24 hours before we come on air the follling Monday.
Still remember what happened.
So we'll be nice and fresh. We'll have had a nice sleep. It's 24 hours earlier. Yeah. But yeah, Hibs at Easter Road. So, and obviously Feyenoord before that. So a tough couple of matches for sure.
I think I've drank more beer last weekend than I have all year. So that's saying something. But anyway, live to tell the tale. Yeah, we'll be back for the Hibs game next week, live and dangerous. So please join us then. Please like and subscribe to the episode. Again, I'll say it one more time. Apologize for the episode not being live for everybody. Gav will be back in studio, in-house, whatever you want to call it, next week, making sure that all the gremlins go away. So, Paul, as per usual, all that is left to say is hail, hail.
Hey ho.